Wednesday, the 23rd day of the plague in Queens. As I was explaining in the last video made yesterday, and in all the last videos made for years, and in all the last writings made for the same years, and before that, I am on my movie toes today, as are indeed my neighbors, who, like in the movie Rear Window, are either on their toes or on their backs with the lights on. One thing New York is good for. So I thought about, and I keep thinking about this idea of talking to myself on the camera. I have never liked talking to myself. I never understood what people meant when they say, I will give myself a talking to. Did that mean that their better self, their better you, was going to tell their imaginary you something that they shouldn't do, so that the two yous, the good you and the naughty you, were in a constant dialogue that had to do with morality and with things that you should do? Now, this other you, the one I'm looking at, which is the visual you on the camera, is a completely different you than the you that is saying these things. The you that is saying these things is the you that is trying to figure out who the you in the camera is. Who are you? And it's this you and I, this I and thou, updates Martin Buber to a certain extent, because the you that is in the camera is immortal. This you, as long as the technology is legible, will last. And that means hundreds of years, possibly thousands. Whereas the you that is speaking these words is the one with attached to a body, which not long from now will become part of the soup again, and it will re-emerge as a worm or a leaf or a rose or a question mark or ink. So the you I'm speaking to, that is me, is immortal, as opposed to me, who is the forgetful man in the days of the plague, trying to keep on his toes by speaking. I'm also writing, and I'm cooking. I am making my famous cabbage and noodles dish, which is simply cabbage, chopped fine, cooked in butter with salt, pepper, and paprika, maybe a little bit of minced onion. And when it's soft, it is combined with a bowl of cooked noodles and let sit for 20 minutes. And it makes the divine dish of my childhood. It is the Madeleine that sends me back to things I liked. I also noticed cutting the cabbage today that the core, I always made claims to the core whenever somebody cut a cabbage, because I love to chomp it down raw and eat it, just like I love raw onion. It is something in there that is strong and good, because as Saint Sylvester said in the 3rd century, God is like an onion, because he is good and he makes you cry. Cabbage is from the onion family, but it doesn't make you cry because it's sweet. It's quite sweet. It is a relative of the Brussels sprout, and it is generally the preferred vegetable of the Transylvanian people, because it is pickled, it is fried, it is boiled. The things you can do with a cabbage are extraordinary, because cabbage and the onion are the two foremost postmodern vegetables or vegetals. as well as the artichoke in some way, because you peel the layers and you peel the layers and you peel the layers, and when you do get to simply a hardened layer, which we call the core for convenience, then you can eat that. And that indeed, having eaten that, which is the substance, here's the siren. The sirens last as long as Alexandrine, I noticed, an Alexandrine verse is the siren. Indeed, they are postmodern vegetables that are layer by layer, and if you eat the hardened layer, the core, then you can ask postmodern questions. And the reason why I became interested philosophically at all in questions of a postmodern nature is because I have early in my life eaten cabbage. Later in my life, artichokes in California, and certainly onions. The artichoke is an interesting vegetable. It was invented by Luther Burbank, the man who also invented the cactus without needles, the spineless cactus. He claimed to have created this hybrid that has no spine by telling the cactus that it had nothing to worry about. The cactus, a rather wise desert plant, will repel invaders with its needles. But in this case, in Luther Burbank's garden, the cactus was told that he had nothing to worry about because he, Luther Burbank, was personally going to look after it. And indeed, the cactus dropped its spikes, and Luther Burbank sold the patent to the Agriculture Department of the United States as cow fodder, cow food. And the Agricultural Department at the time, I think in the 1920s, paid $1 million for Luther Burbank's invention. It turned out that it had no nutritional value whatsoever, and the cows didn't get much out of it. But Burbank was now very much interested in practical applications of his hybrids. He was curious. He made the Santa Rosa rose. He made a number of things that were crossbreeds of odd plants that came to him in the mail. He never asked for seeds. He always just waited and looked at his mail, and because he had a certain amount of fame, the stuff came. In fact, he was angry if he looked in his post box and he didn't see the seeds that he needed. Eventually, he became a great friend of Ramakrishna, I think Krishnamurti, and who dedicated the story of a yogi to him. I may be wrong about the Indian sage and the book, the wonderful magical book that this guru yogi wrote. But it is a book in which he calls Luther Burbank an American saint. And yes, he was. He was an American saint because he had no fear of crossing one thing with another. He moved in the world of seeds the way I move in the city when I can, or I moved in the city, which is now dead and I can't move in at will. This was a great city that closed down for the plague, as you know. And it lost its postmodernism. All locked up things are not postmodern. Locked up things are inside boxes in jail, and like myself. And we from being postmodern, we have become these immortal speaking faces. We're losing our bodies. Every day, I decided I am going to make a corporeal patrol in the neighborhood to see if my neighbors still have their bodies. Yesterday, I went to see two friendly folks, not friends, in fact, who I used to socialize with a good deal before the plague. And I went to see them because I wanted to make sure they had their bodies. We had spoken on FaceTime and Zoom, and I saw their faces, I heard their words, but I wasn't sure their bodies were still there because there is, as you know, a great body theft going on Right now, we're all having our bodies stolen as we're being absorbed by these electronic images that speak. I myself am tired not just of being on them and speaking to this person, self, me, that I don't really know and that's going to last past me, and the amount of faces that come my way all the time from everywhere. So I am experiencing a phenomenon I have named zombification. A few years ago, I wrote a book called Zombification, and at the time it was clear to me that Americans were becoming zombies, and they were, and the movies were zombie movies, and people's activities were zombie-like as the mall structures closed around them. The economic structure of desire was rending them and chomping them apart and taking their time, energy, and money. And now we've entered a new period, the period of the extra O, the period of zombification. So zombification became zombification, meaning that after the structures, the economic structures had chewed us up to an edible level, our bodies are now being taken to be made into food, or whatever it is that they're being made into. In any case, it doesn't concern this person who is speaking in your screen. So this zombified state that we are in, zombification, is a cover also for the actual process of body theft that goes on immensely in the time of the plague. That is one thought. And tomorrow, in the next segment, we'll talk about iPad cemeteries.